Welcome to the Property Management Life Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Wetherington, and I'm here along with your co-host, Greg Deering. Greg, how are you doing today?
I'm doing terrific, Eric. Thank you. How are you?
Great. Remember to subscribe to this podcast. Hit that notification bell down below so that you can be notified when we put out new episodes of our podcast. And today, I'm super excited to have my good friend and property management expert, Deb Newell, from Real Time Consulting as our guest on our show today. Deb, how you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Hi, Eric. Hi, Greg.
Hello. All right. I think I met Deb the first time at the Arkansas State Conference 16 or 17 years ago. So I've known Deb a long time. I think we were both in classes together. Yeah.
Probably. We were such young kids then.
That's right. Well, you were. I feel like I've been old the whole time in this business.
Oh, sometimes you feel that way. I understand.
Yes.
It can make you feel old, but it's fun. It's fun.
It is fun.
Mm-hmm.
It is fun.
Well, Deb, we wanted to get you on our podcast and just have you share some of your knowledge and experience with our listeners. And so we're grateful for you spending some time with us today. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in property management?
Well, I always jokingly say I got started by stupidity. You know, it's not one of those, I mean, many people have said it over the years, but you don't really think, sometimes you just don't know what you're getting into. And I really did this just because we were flipping homes, and the truth is I wanted to get out of debt. And so that's how I started renovating homes, is to kind of quickly flip them and kind of start paying off some of my student loans and other stuff. And so that was really the intent behind it. And then we started holding on to some of these rentals and managing them. And I didn't want the tenants to know who I was. And I was doing the showings and the application processing and the property manager role. So I created this fictitious company that was not owned by me and I just worked for. And so whenever I would always blame this big bad, boss that I had of, well, you got to do this. This is how it, so it was really easy, I didn't think anything of it. I just didn't want to deal with the confrontation. So, but as I started kind of building our portfolio, as you sit across that closing table, people start going, well, I have somebody who also needs help, and would you help manage? I thought, well, how hard could it be? So, I was doing it for myself. Oh my gosh, that was probably the worst thing. In the beginning, you just don't think of it. I charged 4 or 5%. I didn't charge anything, but it was just me doing it. And it kind of, honestly, it just escalated from there. And it really just was all organic. I did no effort. I didn't even know anything about anything. And it was way before I even got hooked up into NARPM or anything like that. I was just figuring it out on my own. That's kind of how it happened.
So what caused you to take this from just helping out a friend or a friend of a friend and whatnot, and really kind of make property management into a business for you guys?
So a couple things that kind of came from it. So I honestly don't know how I got hooked up with NARPM back probably in 2005. I think it was an email, probably talking about a conference. And I think all I remember was the words Hawaii. That was it. It was the first conference, and not the first conference, but that's my first conference, was the Hawaii conference. And brought my husband along, and he was my baggage handler. And literally
James is a good baggage handler too, by the way.
He is. He's like, I'll carry your luggage. He's like, Hawaii? Sure. This was all I don't know how much, I can't even remember how much research I did. I didn't know anything about the organization. I just was like, I'm just going to go and see what I can learn, because I was making a lot of mistakes. And it was that conference that both him and I were like, you have a real business. It was not intended for it to be what it is. It just became that way. And then it was like, I wasn't the only one. There was other people that were doing this in other parts of the country. It's not like you're a lawyer and other people have that as a profession. You really don't know that other people back then, other people had a profession as a property manager. It just wasn't it's not on your tick off list when you're trying to say apply for anything. What are you? It's just not a common thing. So I think it was then that I started it, well, like in 2000, but in 2005 I kind of figured out this is something. So I went several years. I had probably only about 50, 60 units at that time, but you know, for me that was a lot. I was doing it all by myself.
Heck yeah, that is a
And
lot.
Deb, I mean, you do consulting now into property
I
managers
do.
all over the country, and do you think a lot of people kind of fall into this business kind of like you did?
I don't know. I feel like actually people are making more conscious choices to go into the business than they did back then. Um, and I mean, the whole real estate community has changed so much in the last 10/20 years that it's definitely more prevalent. I still think there's a bunch of people who don't know anything about it, and maybe know somebody who knows somebody. But what I do now is obviously take all of my years of knowledge and now opportunities that I've been working with hundreds of other people, seeing how they have their businesses set up, constantly learning, keeping myself really in the know, going to conferences, talking with affiliates, making sure I'm staying on top of the technology, which has changed drastically since even 2008, and and then bringing that all kind of full circle and then helping other people.
Cool. So what do you think about
That was
property
it.
management? No, 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 not at all. It was
Like
just, we were
that was
just
easy.
we were soaking in the answer.
Soaking it all
That
in.
was great.
Okay, good answer. Okay.
So, why do you think property management is a great business for somebody to be in?
Well, I think it offers a lot of opportunities, right? So now, even post COVID, there's opportunities where you don't necessarily have to be in an office environment, right? So you can have an office, or you don't have to have an office. A lot of people are doing remote, but I also think it, it allows that entrepreneurial spirit to kind of create something, do something, and really be in an industry that people love as a foundation, which is real estate, and kind of and it's just a whole different aspect of it. It's different every day. Nothing's ever the same. It's always a surprise, and I think that's where a lot of people get attracted to it as well. When you kind of go into this office setting, or you even have some routine, you could be a dental assistant and you're still cleaning somebody's teeth every single day. This is a little bit different, right? You are managing clients and you're managing residents, and it's there's a lot of variables that come involved with it. So if you like variety, definitely this is it. But I say that with a caveat of you definitely have to have some thick skin. You can't take things personally. It can be emotionally driven by a lot of people. I will say probably the biggest thing that people don't realize when they come into this industry is at some point you will need to hire people, and employees will change the entire dynamic of your business. A lot of us have gone into this business thinking we're going to do this. I know me. I know what my expectations are, and I know what I'm capable of. But if and we're the visionaries, we're the people going in, and we'll work 12-hour days or longer, and it's okay. That's just what we love doing it. We can't expect that always from somebody else. And now relying on other people to execute things that we want can become difficult. Some people just aren't great managers. They're not good at managing others. And I will say that in the beginning, I was probably not a good manager either. I learned a lot of people skills through this, but there was a lot of ups and downs, some learning curves, and I made a lot of mistakes with employees, without employees. It just, so that's kind of where I want to help others avoid some of those pitfalls. But I definitely think that if you can't manage people, you won't be able to grow, because you need people, and you need to know that about yourself and how you're going to deal with those difficult, people calling sick, people have sick kids, people are going to have maternity leave, paternity leave. They're going to take a vacation, heaven forbid. Like, all of these things happen. What's going to happen to your business if that happens? And are you prepared for it?
Cool.
That's such a key aspect when you start having employees. You're exactly right. It changes the dynamics of everything, including having to go back and look at all your systems again because they worked in your head when it was you. And so, do you
That's
see
true.
what's a common theme, or maybe there is or isn't one, when people are calling you for that initial consult? What do you see as the struggles that are out there that would make someone call you?
A lot of it is they've reached a plateau in their business and they can't get beyond that plateau. And that plateau could be anything. It can be employees, growth, strategy, processes. They realize that they can't go further without a foundation in place of some sort. A lot of it is people. There's so many parts I can go into this with you, Greg. But I will say this: when I work with clients who have employees and they want to change, the problem is the employees don't necessarily want to change. So then people are structuring their business around their employees. If that makes sense. Like
Yes.
they're afraid to they're afraid to rock the boat, right? So,
Yes.
well, I really believe in this one platform, whatever it is. It could be anything. But my team won't adopt it. And so you're making business decisions because we're afraid to lose a team member because they also have some, intellectual knowledge of what's going on. And if we lose them, then we could lose the possibility of moving, this trajectory of moving forward. I will say a lot of people come to me more or less because they want to grow. That's always their first thing. I just want to get more doors. They don't really think about the revenue or the profit that they're making as a company. And I always say that growth is actually the easiest thing. Growing isn't hard at all. It's but if your internal stuff is not set up, then growth is going to be impossible.
Well, yeah, Deb, I mean, somebody who thinks they're leading and looks over their shoulder and there's nobody following them, that's a pretty good indication that they're not leading very well. So, and people, no question about it, running a business, the moment you hire one team member, that changes the dynamics of the entire business, and it changes your role as an entrepreneur. You go from leading yourself to now leading other people, and having to talk with them, and having to get them to share the vision, and get them to get on board with what your vision is. And if you can't do that, if you can't clearly articulate your vision and clearly articulate what you're trying to accomplish and how it's going to benefit them and their family, then it's going to be very, very difficult to have a successful business.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, again, it's just leading people is difficult. And when you start, your first employee sometimes becomes that employee that ends up like family. That's good and bad, by the way. I'm not discouraging people from becoming closer to their employees, but it does blur the line when you have to, talk to them about issues. I mean, everybody makes mistakes and they're not perfect either. And so when mistakes happen, how prepared are you to have those difficult conversations, and can you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I look at it as different hats. What hat am I wearing right now? And, and sometimes, and I've had, my kids work in businesses and everything like that. And sometimes you got to take off your dad hat and you got to put on the CEO hat, and you got to talk to them like you're the CEO. And then, you might have that difficult conversation with them, and then you take off the CEO hat and you put on your dad hat and you say, "Hey, I heard you had a bad day at work. Tell me about it." And
Right.
you have to be able to kind of move back and forth between those different positions.
But a lot of people can't do that. That's easy. It's so easy for us to say all this, and
Sure.
I can do it easier for somebody else than I probably could do it for myself. That's how we all look at it. I can give I can give you free advice all day long. Everybody can do that. But when it comes to their own stuff, it makes it very difficult. And with that, I think the other biggest mistake I see in businesses is, as we build our company and we hire people with the wrong title. So we're giving them, and I am guilty of that as well. I have done that many times, but we give people this title that's inflated, and it's not really what they do. But we want them to feel important, and it can backfire on us. So we have to be careful as well. We want to make sure that the job that they're doing is exactly what they're doing, and the title reflects that. It's all because it also hurts them if we give them an inflated title and then they go somewhere else, and then they're in that business that, a director isn't a director. It really, so you have to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, very true.
I'm
very true.
I'm appreciating all of this because I've been in the exact same situation you're talking about, and that's kind of why I was silent for a little bit, because you were talking about building it and how do you take it from just this is what I do to a business. And that I was reflecting personally on the struggle I had that transition. The other thing is when I had an employee who I felt held hostage for about 8 or 9 months, and because she should have gone, I couldn't pull the trigger because she knew too much. And then the other thing is, this is a business, and when you start mentally preparing for it, and so many of us have to struggle with that E-Myth approach of I've done it all, and then I have to start stepping back that, no, I'm the CEO now, I'm not the technician. So I appreciate everything you're saying,
Love
and
that.
it's exactly how the transition in this business works to grow. So you're hitting it all on all points.
I like what you said about holding somebody hostage, because that's exactly how people feel about some of their employees. They hold them hostage.
Yeah.
And then it's the whole thing, what you just said, what happens if they leave? Well, what happens when they leave? Because they will probably leave. Either you'll exit them or they'll leave on their own. And sometimes that will happen sooner than later. So, it's a huge sigh of relief when they leave, but then you're 8 or 9 months behind schedule.
Right, right. And that was self-inflicted with me because I was just
Oh, yeah.
too paralyzed to make that pull the trigger.
You are not alone. That is probably the biggest thing for so many people. Yeah, that's exactly it.
That was good. Good.
So, Deb, for about 21 years, you ran a property management company up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, up in the Twin Cities market, and then some crazy day, I think it was last year, around September 1st, you decided to sell your company to Pure. Tell me about that.
Well, I decided before then. It happened on September 1st. I did. It's everybody has their own reasons on why they do things, and I could have been doing this for another probably 20 or 30 years, but did I want to? Because I also was doing the consulting, and my passion has always been education. I went and got my MBA. I enjoy that piece of learning, and then also kind of teaching / educating others. It's always been that way for me. I've never been a great salesman, but I think I've been a great educator. And that's always how I looked at it for my own business. I approached it that way. I wanted to educate my clients, not sell them my services. And so, for a myriad of reasons, one, it's really cold in Minnesota. And as you get older and your family moves away, they're not coming back. So all of our kids left, and none of them wanted the business, probably good or bad. They just probably looked at me growing up in it, and they were probably like, I don't want to do that. And they're probably smarter than I ever was. And I want them to figure it out for themselves. They all love real estate in their own different way, but I also want them to build a different career for themselves. And if they ever want to do something like this, great, they can. So kids moving away, we weren't from there, and it's really cold. It was kind of just like this domino effect, and it was just time. That was my exit time, because I wanted to leave something that could get started in a great area and focus on the consulting piece full time, and really feel like I was adding value in a different way this time. So yeah, it's my second lease on life, I guess.
Second lease on life. That's great. Yeah. And obviously, you know a lot of people in the property management business. Why did you choose to sell to Pure?
The first reason was because it was employee centric. I really believed in how they were, the foundation of who they were and kind of what they built it on was more on the employee side. Yes, there's still the customer experience side for, our clients and even the residents, but I knew I wanted employees to be taken care of, and I wasn't living there and having to remote back and forth. And so I wanted to make sure that there was a foundation that it was kind of left in good hands type of thing. So that was the first thing. I like the founders. I knew them personally, and that was another piece of it. You kind of have to like. This sounds a little horrible. You kind of have to like who you get in bed with, because essentially that's who we're getting in bed with, right? So we dated for a little while and then we got married. So that's kind of how I look at it, and it was the right fit. But it doesn't always mean it's the right fit for everybody. I think it all depends on what we're looking for and what the outcome is.
Awesome. Great. And so that's freed you up after selling your company then to spend more time doing what you're passionate about, which is teaching, coaching, consulting. Tell us a little bit about real-time consulting.
So I do a myriad of different things. I think as I continue doing this business, it stretches me, and it's opened up a lot of new opportunities. I work with multifamily, I work with institutional, I work with REITs, and I work with smaller companies. So I'll help a company who wants to start a brand new property management company, and I'll help companies who have 7,000+ doors. They all have different problems, and it's been good to kind of step into and wear different hats and learn different ways that people do their business and build training programs, help with acquisitions, help with dissolutions. There's a lot of different things that I can now contribute to, both on my previous experience as a property manager, but then since then, kind of continuing my education and moving from there.
Cool. And so what are some of the things that you see successful property managers doing today in today's changing economy, changing market? Everything's changing. What do you see successful folks doing?
I think successful folks are thinking and utilizing technology the way it should be used. So first and foremost, we have all of this. I mean, we're really in an industry with a lot of industries are like this. We have a lot of affiliates that offer a lot of solutions, and that's great because that could change a lot of the course of how we do business. But we can't ignore the fact that our residents are probably a lot more tech savvy than we are, and we need to make sure that we're meeting those demands that they're seeing from some of their other things that they're doing, whether they're a student and they're in college and they can do everything on their phone, to somebody who's a new parent, and some of the conveniences that we should offer that just weren't available back when I first started. I mean, it was a software platform, and that was it. There was nothing. I mean, there were some third-party vendors, but it wasn't like it wasn't like the hub and spoke model that we have today. And I think that's what we need to consider, is that there are so many affiliates that can really change the trajectory of our business, and what direction do we want to take it. So the successful ones are doing that.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a great point. You think about how technology has changed just in the last 12 to 15 years, in all of our lives. I mean, it wasn't that long ago we didn't have a cell phone, when you didn't basically have a computer that you carried around all the time, with you. And I mean, and now you can, go online, order a pizza, and you can just sit there and watch on your phone as it makes its way down the prep table into the oven and into the box and into the delivery driver's car, and then all of a sudden it's at your front door. I mean, how do you think that technology is going to impact us in property management in the next 3, 5, 10 years?
I will say this. I think it's been tried before, where the companies have started and they only want it to be a tech company. We've seen them, and some of them have failed. Most of them have. I don't think you'll ever in our industry, it's still a people industry. And so you can never fully be all tech. It just won't work. At some point, interactions have to happen, whether it be at the move-in or during maintenance issues or at the move-out. But if there's no interaction at all, no human piece to it, it will probably feel very robotic and not personalized. And in the end, we still want, that I love DoorDash, and I love the fact that I can, order my food, and I can even tell them to leave it at my door and I don't have to meet my dasher. But at the same time, it's still handled by somebody bringing me that food. So there's still a human aspect to that piece of it. And there will be still in our business. I don't know. I think our technology will keep improving, but you can be too teched out where it's not going to give you, I mean, it may satisfy a lot of what you do, but in the end,
Not all.
your residents and your clients still want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Well, it's about that experience and creating that experience for your residents and for your owner clients that they want to have and that you want to have. And I mean, I think that, in a lot of cases that means being able to connect with them in various different ways, depending on what their needs are and what their likes and dislikes are. And
so utilizing different platforms that we have, like Zoom, for example. I mean, we all now know Zoom, but I can connect with a client via Zoom just easily. I don't have to go meet them in person, but they're still seeing me. So I think we can personalize some of the automation, right? So I can have standardized templates, but maybe I can personalize it by putting in a video link and, doing an intro and, saying hi to them, or even sending the email and it's just a video link and it's just me talking. I mean, there's a lot of different things that we can do that will still kind of personalize the transaction, but utilize technology to get our message across.
We found that we started, maybe 2 years ago, we started using BombBomb, and no one on the staff wanted to do it. No one. And I have a wonderful staff, so they said, okay, they'd humor me. And within 2 or 3 days, the comments they were receiving, it's exactly on point to what you were talking about. It is personalized. When I can do an email to you and say, hey, Eric or Deb, I just wanted to give you an update on something. It was phenomenal. It was business changing for us as far as how much it increased the customer satisfaction and relationship level. So I love that, those email things you're talking about.
And I was just thinking of BombBomb as an example when you said that. And it's funny that you also mentioned how your team didn't want to adopt it. You enforced it, and now they're like, we love it. It's all about, I love the explaining the why behind something, right? It's the who, what, why. We have to kind of explain, not just we do it all the time to our residents and to our clients. Why can't we do that with our team? Once you explain something and they kind of get it and they get over their fear of whatever it is, it's usually the change of something, then it's one new thing that they have adopted. So we just got to kind of keep doing that. And so maybe every quarter we can kind of adopt something new or tweak something that's different so that it kind of keeps everything fresh. The other thing is important is making sure our team's constantly educated as well. So I don't want people just to work for me and not have a path of their own. So that's another thing, is to make sure that they can get to know more than me so that I'm not always in the business all the time.
Agreed. And I love our industry. I love our industry because we can send some of our folks to training specifically for their job. In a lot of industries, you can't do it. But it's very beneficial, very beneficial. Sorry, Eric, go ahead.
No, Deb brought up a great point about having a team that ultimately gets to know more than you. And it's so important to allow them those opportunities to be educated and allow them to grow and develop. And if you've got a couple of stars on your team that ultimately end up being smarter than you, fantastic. I mean,
yeah, but some people worry about that because then they're afraid that they're going to take everything, and that's a risk with anything. That's going to happen. Right. It's going to happen. But I will say this: if you treat them well, it's hard. First off, we all know, because we all had our own businesses, the cost alone for me to start it back in 2000 and something, 2001, the cost then was like, I had a notebook or something. I don't even know what I had. I'm not kidding. It was nothing. Maybe my cell phone bill, which was probably really cheap back then. But it's different now. I will say this. There's a lot more overhead now. I sometimes go, I wonder if I could have done this today versus back then. I don't know. It's definitely a lot more money out of pocket. Well, knowing that, we also kind of need to let our employees know what costs go into running a business. Maybe so that one, they understand that it's not that easy to go do this. So if you're going to go start one on your own, you got to think of all of these things and all of the costs. And so helping them understand that, and then just making sure that they, are happy and well taken care of. Oh, that was the other, it's little things like that, Eric, is like, Pure offers like, the unlimited vacation type of thing, right? We're not going to, I say that unlimited, meaning within reason. There's PTO, you can take it. It's not like, oh, you only have 2 weeks and you have to like get approval. Yes, there are certain things you still have to get approval. You can't just leave whenever you want, things like that. But the idea of just not feeling trapped by your employer, if all we have to do, even as a small business, you don't have to sell to Pure or to anybody else. If you're not ready to, you don't have to, but you can make these internal changes, because if you free up that burden that employees feel all the time, it changes their whole attitude. And then you have a whole new employee, and they're going to want to stay, by the way. They won't want to leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely right. You got to take care of your team. You got to take care of your team. And I think that's so important. And probably, to me, it's, if you don't take care of your team, they're not going to take care of your clients and your customers. So there's
absolutely
right.
It's just got to be done. So what are you seeing, Deb, as far as people calling you and asking for your services? What's the biggest or the number one, number two problems that people are coming to you with right now?
Maintenance is number one, always, which, I love. So maintenance is a fun problem for me to resolve for people. Maintenance is, when I say that, it could be a myriad of different things. They're not making money in maintenance. It's, how do I handle maintenance? People have this fear because you don't know something, they can't help you with it. Meaning, I don't tackle maintenance. I just coordinate it. I don't want to do anything else because I don't know how to help or make money in that part of the industry. So that would be the number one. I think number two is, my team and growth. It's kind of a combination of both. Like, do I have too many people? Do I not have enough people? I want to grow. And so defined roles and defined job descriptions are not done in a lot of companies, large and small. People, it's just, I think they may have had one years ago, but it's never been revised. They now do more than their job description, their job title. And so really defining people's roles to help them know exactly when they hand off another task to somebody else, and keeping those boundaries is really important as well. So I work with a lot of companies and helping them, define that both on the maintenance side and the property management side, and then how they all come together. And then the other thing is really the whole life cycle of property management, making sure that we're methodically thinking through the entire life cycle and all of the processes that happen, all of those milestones, and making sure that they kind of fall within those four main buckets of marketing and leasing, accounting, maintenance, and property management. And within those, we have processes and procedures and policies, and most people don't have any of that mapped out. They just started a company like I did and winged it from there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
that's true. Well, hey, property management is a great industry. If you like interesting stories, tell us. Think back through the 20 plus years you've been involved in this, and once you
I
share,
can't say
share
some
an
of them
interesting.
on air.
No, you can't. But share with us one you can say.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. I can't tell you how many are completely like shocking. Like you almost just say, you want to say, you can't make it up. Like you're just shocked at what some people will do. Now you're putting me on the spot. I wish I could have thought of something. I always say that tenants they really are. They know the laws better than we do. So you really have to be prepared. They know the loopholes. They want to, they know, or they think they know, what you can and cannot do, but it's always being better prepared for situations like that. But, things will happen. I've had some bad experiences, both with employees and residents, taking things. And I've had residents come into my office with weapons and to, because they were angry mostly about a deposit that didn't get returned. So there's both scary moments and comical ones. And there's both sad moments. I've had residents pass away, and I've had employees pass away. Like, some of those things are just unexpected, and you don't, those are the sad things that can happen. And really it comes to, are we prepared for a lot of these things? It doesn't take much for a resident to want to sue us, and they can. And conciliation court doesn't cost very much in a lot of states, and they can do that. So making sure that we're very prepared for when that happens is really important. But no, I don't know if I can think of one particular story that stands out. I think it's just so many. Some of the ones I can think of, unfortunately, are just the worst. Probably is, taking out those hoarders, and, a lot of us have had those trash out properties that we have to do, and finding some very unique items.
Yeah,
yes.
There's
it's always been fun.
Always interesting things to find when you have to assist somebody in moving out of a rental property. That's for sure.
Hey, I'm changing topics just a little here, but just for my curiosity, looking back on my growth in the industry. So when someone calls you right now and is looking for consulting, what percentage of those people, and this isn't a hard and fast rule, but what's the percentage of people that just say, I want to grow, versus how many of them first understand for instance, ancillary business that's out there?
Oh, gosh.
Is it more like what I was?
90-10, 90-10,
Okay.
95-10, 95-5. It's honestly, most people don't know the ancillary piece.
Okay, that's just like I was. I remember putting on my board once, if I could just get to 50 properties, and we have 850 now, so that's how long ago that was. But I knew nothing of the ancillary.
Well, and that's the thing. So this is where I say what we do for a living is not rocket science. We all do business. You're right. We all do business differently, but we all charge a management fee. And we all charge some sort of a lease up fee, right? Placement fee / lease up fee. We all must probably charge a late fee. Whether or not we keep it or give it to the owner is entirely up to you. But what we miss are, and most of us now are charging renewal fees, but there's a lot of other opportunity that we're missing out on. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Figuring out how to provide services to your tenant, services to your owner, and have it benefit financially, everybody and the property manager too, it's something that requires a lot of time, a lot of thought, a lot of energy, and so many people just don't put the time and effort into thinking.
But this also goes back to making sure your employees understand why we're doing something. I've worked with clients who employees are like, I'm part of my process is I'll talk to each key employee of the business. So I have a discovery period where I kind of go into a business and I want to know, because, Eric, you came to me and you're like, I'm doing this in my business. Well, I'm hearing that just from you. You're not usually the doer. You're seeing a result of, this is the symptom of whatever the root cause is. So I have to figure out that piece. So that's my whole analysis. I go in, I'll talk to key employees. Oftentimes there's like workarounds. They don't understand a process. They don't understand why they do something. And I've even heard people say, well, I just know that, he wants to charge all these fees so he can, pocket the money. They don't really understand this is where there's the overhead costs. They don't, why we have to do this. Because if we were just to live off of our management fees alone and nothing else, nobody would be in business at all.
That's correct.
Yeah. Very true.
Especially in today's society, especially today, not just with the economy, but even just the software solutions that we use are exorbitantly high in some cases. And so just to run the simple part of the business, I'd be lucky if I could have one employee. It's just, it's unaffordable. So we have to rely on these ancillary fees. Plus we are doing a service and it's a lot of work. And in order to do that, we have to have these add-on fees or whatever you want to call it. And some give them options and some don't, but it's a necessity, unfortunately, in the way we run our business. And that has changed from when I started to now. Just like you said, Greg,
Yeah.
those didn't, I mean, we were charging late fees, management fees, and a placement fee. I think that was it. That was it. Nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember I made $5 if they bounced a check.
Yes, checks.
$5.
That's yes. What is a check again? I don't even know if I have a checkbook. But
I'm dating myself, but I look back now at the first 10 years of how much I missed and didn't know. And
but we all play that. We all play coulda, shoulda, woulda. We all do it. I do it all the time, but you can't.
No,
this is where you just have to say, I'm going to change now. That was a great idea. And again, this goes back to now. Here's another one for you, Greg. There's Facebook groups that weren't even in existence before. We had NARPM had discussion groups, but even those were like bound. Those are bound by more rules. Definitely, you go on Facebook. A lot of things is off limit. You can say a lot, but everybody's an expert. Everybody has advice, and it's all good. Nothing's necessarily bad, but I do say take everything with a grain of salt and make sure it fits your business. Because what Eric does and what you do and what I do, all foundationally are the same, but at the same time, we're all in 3 different states. We cannot run our businesses the same.
Sure.
Regulatory.
A lot of people miss that. Yep.
Yeah. Exactly.
Different states, different rules, different laws, which leads me to my next thought here, Deb. And what do you think are the major rules or regulations or laws that are going to kind of sweep our industry?
Rent control is the biggest one that we see coming across. It's not California anymore. It's Washington. It's Oregon. It's New York. I call it it's the coast to coast.
Well, even Naples, Florida. Naples, Florida just passed a rule that said they have to give 60 days notice to a resident before they can raise their rent by 5%.
Get this, Chicago, 120 days.
Wow.
120 days that's 4 months before their lease is done and I have to now make a decision. There's so many little things that are just changing. So it's not, I say rent control, but rent control can be a myriad of things. It could be you can't raise the rent or you can only raise it in increments of XX, right?
Right.
So, or you can start renewing somebody's lease or defaults to, it's just a bunch of stuff. So I think I am all for certain laws in place. I would love it if there was more conformity. I don't see that. Even within its own state. I saw this in Minneapolis all the time. Minneapolis and St. Paul, Twin Cities, both have very different rules and regulations when it comes to rentals. And that was a struggle because I'm like, couldn't they just get along? Shouldn't they just all get together and get along? It's literally like 2 political sides. It's very much like that. But I see it in a lot of different states. And so if there was more conformity, that would be nice. And I don't disagree with some things that are in place. I think that there does need to be some boundaries, but then it can be very much overstretching when you're like Oregon, you guys know this one? You can't have your application fee exceed $10.
Right.
That's it. $10.
Yep.
You can't screen somebody for $10 anymore.
Like
the software we all know
they charge you more for the screening. Right.
It's exactly like $16.95 for the most basic of basic, which is my credit report. Like that's
without
as cheap
the labor.
as they'll ever give. Exactly. That's just the button.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but things like that, I just wonder who is sitting in that seat and thought this is a good idea. So.
Yeah, we need to do a lot more education from it as an industry about those kind of things because somebody comes up with a law like that and then
the people that come up with those laws do not manage rental property or own rental property, so they don't understand it. They own a house and they don't want to be bothered, and that's fine. They don't have to know it, but they're making decisions that would just be like me trying to make a decision in the insurance industry, which I know nothing about, but I'm going to sit on a board or a committee and make a decision that affects your industry, but I'm absolved from it because it doesn't affect me.
Right.
Wow.
Well, Deb, this has been great. Really appreciate you spending some time with us today and talking about property management, something that's near and dear to all of our hearts. if people want to get in touch with you and talk more about real-time consulting, how would they do that, Deb?
They can go to, it's really easy, propertymanagementconsulting.com.
Great. Great. Propertymanagementconsulting.com, and we'll make sure we put that in the show notes so people can see that.
Sure.
And reach out to Deb Newell if they have questions about property management or things that they might need some help with in their business. Deb's a great resource for that. So,
Yep,
Greg, any
sure
closing
is.
thoughts?
Well, always good to hear from Deb, and always good. We always learn something. So she's got her finger in the pulse of what's going on out there. So it's nice to help keep up on what's going on, and it's always good to see you. So good luck.
Yeah, you as well.
We'll hope
Thanks,
to see
guys.
you shortly, probably in October. I hope.
Exactly. I will
Good.
see you there.
Good. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks,
Thanks.
Deb. Thanks for being with us. Make sure that you subscribe to this podcast and click that like button for us as well. Thanks for your time today, and we'll see you again soon on the next episode of Property Management Life Podcast.